Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all? I think we're all doing very, very well. We're only a couple of days from the beginning of 2023. What more calamities, catastrophes and disasters lie awaiting for us in this ensuing 12 months? Oh, who cares? We're gonna have a laugh anyway. What does it matter? It couldn't get any worse, could it? Oh no! No, seriously, it couldn't. And we're going to fight back. Anyway, last night I had a 4K double bill with my son. A big bonding session. It was actually two presents he bought me for Christmas. One was Highlander in 4K. Great. Studio Canal. Great transfer. Few rough shots, as you know. Highlander is a very rough looking movie. We all know this. But it has been polished up pretty well. Real genuine grain structure and exquisite detail in the majority of the movie. I liked it. And also from Studio Canal, King Kong 1976. Oh God, folks, such a special place in my heart for that movie. I've seen it a gazillion times. I've referenced it and talked about it a lot on the channel. I've played the music. We're playing John Barry's phenomenal score for this movie right now. Again from Studio Canal, a 4K restoration, a towering restoration. They rather self-aggrandized themselves. And for the majority of it is. But there's a few issues which we will talk about because I'm going to devote a video to King Kong 1976. I know. It's been waiting in the wings for a long time. Well, it's coming. It's definitely coming. And I know that a lot of people don't like the movie. I know. I've lived a life. I know these things. And you're all wrong. It is, out of all the King Kongs, and I'm a massive fan of King Kong, and I'm talking proper King Kong, none of your Monsterverse bullshit. No, I'm not into that at all. I'm sorry, it just ain't happening. It's King Kong, Skull Island for me. Now we know we've got more King Kong stuff on the way. We know this, I've done videos on this and what's forthcoming. But 1933 King Kong is a masterpiece, unparalleled, it's genius. It's brilliant. It's still moving. It's incredibly exciting. It's the most exciting and the most monster-filled and savage of all the Kongs. Then you get 76, the eco-warrior sort of against man's arrogant rape of the environment. It's wonderful, and it is a love story, a very bizarre Beauty and the Beast take, but it is a love story nonetheless, and it works. Then you get, of course, Peter Jackson's overblown love letter to the original, which I do love, but I've got to be honest, it's too long and he over-labours every single element that he loves in the original movie, which is every single moment, every frame of the original movie. He just elongates everything. It's the elastic can only go so far, and then it goes flaccid and loses all its tension, and that's what happens with his King Kong. But I've got to admire someone that loves a movie that much that they're going to commit so much of themselves to a recreation of it. So I still love that. But we watched King Kong 76 last night, and as I say, I'll talk about the issues with that restoration because there are some, but they're nowhere near as bad as people are making out. They aren't anywhere near as bad as people make out. But I fell in love with the movie. I've never fallen out of love with the movie. But again, I was exhilarated, excited, moved to tears. I laughed at all the funny bits. I loved it all over again. But it reminded me that, hang on a minute, there is another version, an unsung version of King Kong, which doesn't go by the name of King Kong. It goes by the name of Amok King of Legend. For 'tis here. I have the book there. Now, when Dino De Laurenti was getting his King Kong together and Lorenzo Semple Jr. was doing his screenplay, Futura Books, I used to love getting Futura books when I was a kid. I've got gazillions of them. It's a great publishers, a lot of horror and fantasy and thrillers and sci-fi, great stuff. And they approached a already pretty well-known author in the UK called Ken Follett. And Ken Follett was doing historical dramas, the Dark Ages, medieval times, ongoing sagas, and a lot of pulpy spy novels. They approached him and said, "Can you do a giant ape story?" As you do. But if you've got a bit of free time, just cobble together a giant ape story. A few conditions. Can you make it a bit like King Kong? Can you put him on top of a big, proper skyscraper or tourist, building in the world, and have a girl being sacrificed to that he falls in love with? Can you do all that? So he's basically going, you want me to rewrite King Kong? Well, yeah, we do. Now, why are you doing this? Futura thought that Dino De Laurentiis' lavish, huge budget, big spectacle King Kong was going to bring home the bacon, and which it did, but it didn't do as much as people thought it was going to do. They sold the film. I'll talk more about this when I talk about the film itself, but they sold the film and got a lot of backing for it by making a huge 50-foot robotic ape, which of course didn't work, did it? No, and it's only in a couple of shots and it looks ludicrous. But they got backing and funding because of that. So Futura thought, well, hang on a minute. Any cash-ins on this are going to just, we're going to be quids in. Come on. So they approached Ken Follett to do this. And he went, all right, I've got 3 weeks to kill. Because it took him about 3 weeks to write this book. And he came up with Amok King of Legend, which I'll talk about in a second, but it's interesting to note that his book came out just before Dino De Laurentiis' movie came out. I keep calling it Dino De Laurentiis' film, because it is. It's directed by John Gilliman, but it's a Dino De Laurentiis extravaganza. But Ken Follett's book came out just before the film did. And incidentally, Futura themselves republished the original novelization of the original 1933 King Kong, which is here. This is Futura's 1977 publication. So this came out, this reprint came out after Laurentiis' film came out. Whereas they got Ken Follett, get his name right, Ken Follett, to write Amok King of Legend. I know you're seeing a different name there, but we'll discuss that. But Futura actually, obviously was like, okay, the film was bullshit, but their words, not mine. So we'll just republish the original novelization. The original novelization of King Kong 1933 is by Delos Wheeler Lovelace. And that's a real name. You always think that's a pseudonym, because it's a great name, Delos W. Lovelace, but that's his real name. And people also credit Marion C. Cooper, who with Schoedsack collaborated and wrote the screenplay for King Kong, the original King Kong. But you often see the novelizations of King Kong with Marion C. Cooper's name on it. He didn't write it. It was Delos W. Lovelace who wrote it. And it's very threadbare, and it adheres to the movie pretty much. Although you do have, some sequences which didn't make the movie. You know what I'm talking about. And it's great. It's a fast, pulpy read. And the thing is, that's exactly what Ken Follett did with his Amok King of Legend. Amok King of Legend. There he is, Amok, great big giant gorilla atop the Golden Gate Bridge, swatting helicopters out the sky. So when I was a kid, and I loved King Kong, the original King Kong. I knew King Kong very well. And the big movie was coming out, and he knew about this because it was big. It was being announced beforehand. Even on the news, they were carrying stuff. As a kid, I remember being excited about this film, knowing about it. And I saw this book. Oh, what the hell is that? That's King Kong. No, it doesn't say King Kong. It says Amok King of Legend. So it's got a giant ape and the word king in it. Well, it's got to be Kong, hasn't it? Now, Ken Follett, because he was trying to make a name for himself, Ken Follett was ex-MOD. He used to write technical papers for the Ministry of Defence. And he got sick of it. Mate, I know how you feel. I've been waiting for the MOD for most of my life. Fucking sick of it and all. And I thought, I want to make some more money. I want to get a new car. So I want to start making some proper money, proper moolah. I start writing books. Because back in the 70s, writing books, you actually could make some money out of it, make a living out of it. It's very hard to do it now. So I began writing like spy thrillers and pulp stuff, and but under his real name, Ken Follett. They were more seriously taken stories, but the pulpy stuff he could write, he could churn them out. So that's how Futura got hold of it. So like, under your pseudonym, just write this book. As it happens, Ken Follett, under the same pseudonym of Bernard L. Ross, would do the novelisation a couple of years later of Peter Hyams' great Capricorn 1. Yes, James Brolin. And oh my God, Elliot Gould. Fantastic movie, love it. And an awesome James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith score. Now that was based on the screenplay written by Peter Hyams, so it wasn't his own story. But I think not only did Ken Follett think, well, okay, I'm going to get paid for this. £1,500 he got paid for it. 1,500 quid, which back in the mid-70s, that's quite a sum, to be honest. So did pretty well on that. And I've got a feeling that he was thinking, look, Dino's version hasn't come out yet. If I get this book out, this might take over, and the film might be my version. That would have been an intriguing thought. Because you know what? Even though, and this is a cash-in, or you can only view this from the outside as being a cash-in on King Kong, which it so patently is. I'll read you the back blurb and I'll tell you about the story itself. But it is its own beast in many ways. Okay, I'll read you the back of this, right? Okay, you'll spot differences right away, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because the same events will take place. Deep in Africa's tropical heart, there lived the legend of a giant beast, rampaging across the country, destroying everything in its path. The natives called it Amok. On location for a wildlife film, biologist Harry Kaminsky and producer Warren McAlpine begin to track the source of this legend. A trail of dead animals with crushed skulls and broken backs finally leads the expedition to a hidden valley, a tribe of pygmies, and their sacred god, a 50-foot king of the jungle, Amok! When pretty production assistant, get this, Purity Lane, is accepted by Amok as a live sacrifice, Harry, Warren and the rest of the expedition seize the opportunity to rescue her and capture the monster alive and bring him back to San Francisco as Amok, King of Legend. Have we stumbled across that plot before somewhere? Of course. And yet, Follett's a good writer. But he's writing this in the pulpy tradition. So it's fast, it's page-turning. Your characters are neatly drawn. You've got mystery, you've got excitement, you've got expeditions, you've got trouble and danger, jeopardy, a beast, a sacrifice. And then you go through all the stuff that you know from King Kong. They capture the ape and he's transported back, but not to New York, but to San Francisco. And he will get loose. He loves his little Purity Lane, he loves her, but he also likes one of the guys as well. So the two of them, because they're sympathetic towards him, like you have in the 76 version of King Kong. Jessica Lange's Dwan has feelings for Kong. I know that sounds wrong, but hang on, that was a rap there. And but Jeff Bridges as Jack Prescott wants to save Kong. He's a conservationist, environmentalist. He sees man is doing the wrong thing and exploiting this giant beast for monetary gain and showmanship, as we all should feel. So you've got that, but Kong seems to like the two of these characters. But in Nick Kong, Amok, where's Amok come from? I mean, we're not in some, weird mystical island wrapped behind a fog bank, perennially hidden from mankind, Skull Island, with a hitherto unknown tribe of natives and this huge primate living there, and in the original dinosaurs as well. This is in deepest Africa, and the conceit behind this, and I like the way that it brings in another genre, the mad scientist genre. You get a bit of a sort of prologue where you're out in the jungle and the nearest street lamp is 500 miles away, as we're told. But the professor, the mad, he's from Latvia, but fled during World War II to America and became this leading scientist. But he's got some crazy theories on evolution and how to speed things up a bit. These scientists, they're always leaping ahead, aren't they? Cheers, y'all. He's worked out a way of isolating the DNA bit, the DNA strand, which decides how big you're going to be. You can only get to a certain size in the womb, and then that size in the womb dictates how big you're going to be. Once you're born, you're going to reach certain parameters. Bone structure and musculature and physicality is set in stone, or flesh and bone. He works out a way of eradicating that, so there's no limit. And out in his jungle compound with 30-foot barbed wire fences and all that, he's got all these animals there, but it's very cryptically told. You don't even, the names are given to these animals, but you don't know what they are. But I think it's called Nancy. Little Nancy's pregnant, but a fire breaks out there. Well, he causes the fire. He's a doddery old idiot, and he has a heart attack as well. But he manages to free all his animals, and he'll get out. So there's other bigger animals are out there, but I think Nancy was pregnant at the time. Like, we don't know what she is, but she's obviously a gorilla. He manages to pick her up, and in the midst of his heart attack, he plunges through a flaming wall and just sends her off, and she just scampers out, but he dies, and it's all burnt out. And obviously her offspring, well, one especially, will grow to rather large proportions. And this guy will step on the backs of elephants and leave trails of dead elephants and swathes of crushed, canopy, jungle canopy. And this local tribe of pygmies, which makes the size even bigger, doesn't it? Because they're little fellas, as it says, not 1 over 4 feet. But they're quite vicious, because our intrepid film crew, who encounter all this, then get driven out of Africa because one of them foolishly shoots a bull elephant, and they get arrested and sentenced and deported. But our big main guy, right, he's stumbled on the compound, and he's heard this legend of this Amok, that everyone talks about. Amok. What kills elephants? Amok. Well, what is Amok? Amok is Amok. Is it a man? No, man. Amok. Well, you just fucking draw a picture. If you can't describe, draw a picture of it. He manages to work out who owned that compound. So he works out all the professor's experiments, and he travels around the world. He goes to England, he goes to America, goes everywhere, meeting people that knew this guy. He says, I think he's dead. I think this compound burned down, but I think he was doing experiments, and I think this legend of Amok, a giant beast, something to do with him. He's created it. So he gets funding, and he gets an intrepid explorer to come with him. So off they go, and they incur the wrath of the local guerrillas. Now that's guerrillas spelt differently. That's the type of guys you've got in Predator. Sort of rebels, armed to the teeth, and got machetes as well. And they get captured by them. But the pygmies free them. The pygmies want Purity Lane. As a little sacrifice to, well, I say little sacrifice, she's twice the size of them, isn't she? To Amok. And Amok will do the same things that Kong does. He'll fall in love with her. And they will capture him, they'll be chased by him, they'll battle him, and, other encounters will take place. It's actually quite a fast-paced and exciting story. And it is told in the best of pulp traditions. It's a page-turner. The characters, they're acerbic, they're sharp, the dialogue is staccato, and you get, thought processes. It all works. Ken Follett's a good writer. And for something like this, which you think, what a cheap, nasty little copycat piece of shit that is. Yeah, and from the outside looking in, that's exactly what it is. Only he wrote this before the bloody film came out in '76. And yet, there's elements in this which creep into Gilliman and Lorenzo Samples and De Laurentiis 76 version. Weird, no? And it's also a retake on the original Schoedsack and Cooper, original Willis O'Brien King Kong from 33. So it's not the hack job that you think it is. It's actually it's well written as well, and you can go through it in the blink of an eye. Well, maybe several blinks of the eye, but it's well told, and I do actually enjoy this. Now, what I forgot pretty much about this until watching the 76 King Kong last night, and I just thought, oh god, there's that Amok book. I go find that going down the shelves. You'd think it would be alongside all my other King Kong sort of paperbacks, which are all on the shelf in a big area on one of the shelves. And it wasn't. I must have at some point gone like, oh, Amok, that's a King Kong wannabe, but it's a non-abe, and put it somewhere else. But you know what? No, I'm going to keep this with the rest of the Kong books because it actually is worth your time. Now, this in the UK at the time of this publication in 76, 75 pence. 75 pence. I actually got it from a place called Bookcase, which was down the road, second-hand bookshop, and I got it for 30p. But I got that the same time as King Kong come out, so it must have come out and not sold a damn thing. Maybe they didn't even bother pushing it in the UK. Dino De Laurenti tried to close down many movies which were ape themed at the time because he wanted his to be the big event, which it was. So did he somehow manage in his powers to get this book sort of suppressed? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I got this paperback, never saw a hardback version. I doubt it would have had a hardback version. And I picked this up for 30 pence, it says there. And there's another little weird thing in the back of this as well, because someone else obviously had this before me. I think you can read that. Ted Nugent, Gonzo. It's got Gonzo written there. Ted Nugent, Gonzo. Was Ted Nugent the guy that operated Gonzo the puppet in the Muppets? I don't know. Ted Nugent, Gonzo. And the weird thing is, looking at that now, although I have no memory of this, that does look like my handwriting when I was a kid. My joined up handwriting. But I have no idea who Ted Nugent is, so I don't know. There could be a story there, I don't know. But yeah, so to try and get a copy of this is worth hundreds of pounds now, if not a hell of a lot more, because people, collectors do want this, because it's part of the King Kong phenomenon. It's a Kong wannabe, and to be honest, there's not enough of Amok. Now I'm going to get into it. There's not enough of Amok in this story. A lot of the build-up is the mystery surrounding. But then again, you think about Kong itself, a lot of it, especially Peter Jackson's version, it's a good hour and a half in before you even see fucking Kong, But once Kong's introduced, it's Kong, Kong conquers all. But Amok, it's still massively predominant on the main characters and their relationships, but it is genuinely exciting and very fast-paced. So you get whole conversations in a page, battles and shootouts, and big paws swiping down, helicopter swatted. It's only a paragraph, In a novel now, that would be a chapter, and several chapters about one confrontation and the aftermath, the repercussions, the PTSD, and all this kind of stuff. Because that's what novels are now. They're bigger, like movies, bigger, longer. Not always a bad thing, but very definitely not always a good thing either. But there you go. Bernard L. Ross, Amok, King of Legend. Designed as a fast, cheap way of cashing in on what was expected to be a huge phenomenon, which it was, but it backfired because the film got critical flack. and was derided by many people. So you can see future almost going like, oh, shit. Right, let's get the rights to the original Lovelace novelisation of King Kong and put that out instead, which they did. There it is. You can see all these tactics coming in, can't you? Movie studios act the same way as well, so publishing houses are exactly the same. I've got a feeling they were more cutthroat back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, where they knew films were coming out, so they'd launch campaigns with get their own book out quicker, which is clearly what happened here. But I've got a real strange feeling that Ken Follett must have thought, this is going to be a huge movie. This could really make my name. If I get mine out first, and De Laurenti and John Gilliman and Lorenzo Semple Jr. get to read my version, they might go, oh shit, it's better. God, we haven't got to worry about so many rights with Skull Island and all that, because the rights for King Kong are all over the show at the moment. You can have Kong, you can't have King Kong. You can have King Kong and Skull Island, but you can't have I don't pretend to understand any of this, but that's the way things work. But this may have been a way of getting around it for the studios as well. And it's a nice take on the story, and it gives a backstory to why you've got a giant 50-foot, gorilla running around. Kind of works. Anyway, folks, I thought I'd bring that to your attention. Cheers, y'all. John Barry's score for King Kong 76 is a thing of absolute haunting beauty. There's power, there's savagery, there's primal quality to it, but it's so haunting, tragic, moving and beautiful at the same time. It's just, I've discussed it many times, and I will obviously discuss it again when I properly go into King Kong 1976, because I have not given that film its proper full due. I might even do a watch-along party. Given the fact that we got away with Jaws quite well, I think we can do this. There's the TV cut, the just over 3 hour long TV cut of King Kong 76 is on that UHD disc as well. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting indeed. I'll talk more about that. There's 60 minutes more footage in that. Not all of it's worthwhile. Some of it's just pathetic. Repeats of shots you've seen earlier, and some are just longer shots of rocks and foliage and the cast, the characters moving about. Kong walking about Skull Island, Kong walking about nocturnal New York. Actually, they're all good bits. Kong in the East River for a hell of a long time. Kong climbing the World Trade Center for a good couple of minutes longer in the TV cut than he does in the theatrical cut. But it also softens things. It takes out the swear. It filters and takes out the swearing, and the violence in it is massively watered down. And yes, you've got more of King Kong's carnage. You've got the speeding car coming down the other road in New York, which stops in front of him, but the people don't get out of it in time. And he picks it up and just goes, has a look at it, and then hurls it into a high-rise apartment block. Big, who killed a load of people there as well, and then just fucking strides off. So it's a weird combination. You can't say, oh, I prefer the TV cut because there's so much more in it, but you're losing so much as well. You're gaining a lot, and you're getting some scenes which are quite long, but they're pivotal in a way, but they don't really. You'd rather they weren't there, but there's still so many little bits in that TV cut which you think, oh, because again, we went on to watch elements because I knew the bits of the difference, to watch those bits, and the whole once he escapes in New York, that really I kept going to be sort of going, oh, this is wow, this is great, this look at this, oh, this is brilliant. I forgot a lot of them. And there's also, well, on the topic, you know me, once I start I don't shut up, do I? The whole thing about Jack and Dwan, so Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange at the end, why he turns his back on her and walks away in the crowd while she's shrieking in horror and rage at Kong's downed body. His heart beat its last, his eyes glazed over. Oh God, I'll fill up again because this film will destroy me. Talking about it destroys me anyway, but and especially playing the music. But Jack turns his back on her. Now we know that Dwan wants the limelight. She wants stardom, but she has got a heart. But she can be bought. Like Fred Wilcox, Charles Grodin, who's outstanding in the movie, outstanding. The Petrox Explorer, front man, Petrox oil and all this. But also, he's now got grandiose ideas of being the master showman. You shouldn't have radioed New York and said you're bringing home the big one. The big one. Jesus. Who says I ain't gonna? It's genius. I love Charles Grodin. But Jack turns his back on Dwan at the very end, and she's screaming for him, Jack, Jack. And he's like, his big billowing long hippie hair. Nothing wrong with that. And bugs out. Well, in that bar, the late night bar, the basement bar Jack, buy me a drink in that bar there. And there's curfew, there's martial law in New York, which it took only seconds to put that into effect. And they go down there, and he says to her, if the monkey doesn't make it, I don't know how we can look each other in the eye ever again. This is exactly what happens. And I've written extensively about the King Kong 76. I've written about the original and Peter Jackson's as well. Back in the days where I used to write stuff down on AB forums, and you'd spend hours reading it because I didn't have to go on. You think I talk, but I could write as well. And I analysed all of this dynamic and why their feelings changed. But it's nailed in that scene in the extended TV cut as to what a man of his word. If the monkey doesn't make it, I don't know how we can ever look each other in the eye again. And it's sorted out there. It's brilliant. King Kong 76 is a majestic movie. It's one of the biggest movies I've ever seen. I remember seeing it every night for 2 weeks on its first run, sitting there, and it was just, the film opened, and when they got to Skull Island, Hawaii, it was mind-blowing. It still is. And that when they're going through the canyon and the camera just pans back impossibly further and further away, it's just such a beautiful, breathtaking shot. Jessica Lange is beautiful and breathtaking anyway. And Kong, and that face, Rick Baker's mask, Rick Baker playing Kong. We'll talk more about this because this was to talk about Amok King of Legend, which I've done. But King Kong 76. When people who've spoken to me and they go like, "Oh, you like King Kong and all that," and I have these conversations now. I don't just make these things up because everyone knows I love movies. I go out wearing St. Pliskin's costume, or I look like Mad Max, or whatever. I've got a movie T-shirt on. It inspires conversation in the pubs and all that. So inevitably, I've spoken about King Kong a hell of a lot, and almost universally, haha, no pun. People always laugh and deride the 76 version. And I get quite stroppy about this. Well, my reasons and my arguments have already been put forward on the channel and in writing fucking millions of times. And I'll save that now for the full video on King Kong 1976. But in the meantime, folks, try and find yourselves a copy of Amok King of Legend, because it's actually pretty good. It is. You can only look at it as being a King Kong cash-in, a King Kong rip-off. Of course it is. But Ken Follett knew what he was doing. Right, you want a giant fucking ape story, yeah? And, okay, you can't copyright a giant ape. You can pick any version of that up. So they change it to Africa. They change all the background of it. It's a genetically modified creature. It's not a tribe of island natives. It's a tribe of pygmies. We're not going to New York, we're going to San Francisco. I don't know how you get over it now. I think copyright's massively tightened up on that. As I said, because you can't use King Kong and Skull Island in the same title, or whatever. Whatever the ramifications of the copyright are, but there are, and it's quite strict. which is why you're meant to be getting, you've got the MonsterVerse Kong, and you've got the new, what's going to be a TV series, which I did a video on this. This is apparently, well, I haven't heard nothing about it since I did that video actually, so I don't know, is it really going ahead or not? Like, because that's based on a set of stories which were written, only 10 years ago, 15 years ago, which take on a different aspect of Kong on Skull Island. How can it be so complicated? It's a fucking giant gorilla with the hots for a fit young blonde. And who hasn't? Who doesn't turn into a big bad hairy ape when there's a hot young blonde around? Anyway, folks, there's something to think about. No, not that. King Kong 76. We're going to talk about that, and I will review Highlander as well. A film I dearly love, massively flawed movie. I've said many times, but I've never actually sat and really reviewed Highlander. I've got the Dragon Head Katana, thanks to Scrowy. I've got the Kurgan Blade. I've got the MacLeod Claymore. And I've done videos on all of those, and obviously discussed Highlander at length throughout it. But I've never sat and discussed the movie itself, so we'll get that as well. Anyway, folks, I have been over Shadow Kilt-Man. Please, in the meantime, in this ever hairier, hornier in between time, please, just be yourselves. And if you encounter walls that are 30, 40, 50 feet high, don't go fucking looking behind it, because there's quite clearly something that people are afraid of sitting just beyond there, and possibly very hungry. Don't do it. I'm going to see you all. Do you hear that noise then? The helicopter's coming to kill Kong, and the fucking machine guns going. Bastards. Remember, a Kong is for life, not just for Christmas.